The fact that Eve listened at all, I think because she was naive and she didn't know what to expect next in this garden anyway. And so this was as new and as wonderful as anything else she'd discovered there. And so it's interesting the devil didn't go to the man. Man might have had more sense. But he goes to the woman, naive. Well, she'd only just, she's Eve come lately. I mean, Adam's been around a lot longer. Adam's already named all the animals. He's studied these creatures. She hasn't. And the devil possesses the serpent. And you find here in verse 14 of chapter 3, this is the curse. He said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all cattle, above all wild animals. Upon your belly you shall go. Dust you shall eat all the days of your life. Now he's speaking to the devil. The fact that a snake crawls on its belly, and in that sense is the lowest, most humiliated of all God's creatures. God was not addressing the snake per se. The fact of where the snake is, on its belly in the dust, has no meaning at all unless God is speaking beyond the snake to the devil who possessed it. And he is saying to the devil, dust you shall eat all the days of your life. And that's a great comfort. As the human race moves into its present context, where there's a very real devil on the planet, God said, all the days of your life you'll eat dust. So whatever the devil does, know in the end he's always going to eat dust. It's a great comfort. Always eats dust. On your belly you shall go. Always in a position of humiliation. Always eating dust. Now, I want you to notice that God took the initiative. I think we're beginning to establish that in the covenants. God takes the initiative. And in this case, God took the initiative because he loved man. But I think we've got to see beyond that. God took the initiative because his glory as the great creator has been assaulted. This is an area of salvation we miss many times. When Jesus died, who did he die for? Ever thought about that? Christ died for the ungodly, but it also says in the book of Revelation, when they sang, worthy is the Lamb, for thou hast redeemed for God. When Jesus died, he died for God and for man. Do you follow what I'm saying? The devil had assaulted God's creation. The devil had declared war on God's glory. And first of all, God is going to vindicate his glory. Secondly, that will involve we get saved. Do you really follow what I'm saying here? His handiwork has been disharmonized by sin. And so God is now going to manifest his glory. He steps in and says, I'll deal with this. And devil, you who started this, you'll be humiliated and you'll eat dust. See, the devil had deceived the woman by convincing her that the way God had set up the creation was not true. It's not true love. It's not true wisdom. It's not true goodness. If you're going to do what I say, then we'd really get this thing together. God, the first temptation was against God's creation, a slander on God's name. And so forever, the serpent announces to us the ultimate defeat of the one who turned against God's glory. Now, in chapter 3 and verse 15, he says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, you shall bruise his heel. I find that fascinating. Do you notice what it says? It says, I'll put enmity between you and the woman. Now that's the last place I'd expect enmity. Think about it. Man has sided with Satan, right? Isn't the fall of man just that? Man says, I'm on Satan's side. I trust his word, not God's. So the last place I would expect a quarrel to develop is between man and the devil. Do you follow what I mean? I'd expect it if it says there'll be enmity between the woman, Satan, and God. Right? Man has gone over on devil's side. So I'd expect all the anger, the enmity, the quarrel, the bitterness between man and God. God says, I am going to put enmity between the seed of the woman and you, devil. Your opposition, devil, is going to come from the very people you have deceived and who are now on your side. I get excited. If you're following me, I hope you feel my excitement. God said, the very people that you've got on your side, from them is going to come your defeat. That's the neatness of God. From the very people you deceived, I am going to defeat you. Notice what he says. I am going to put the enmity. And that is, God guarantees the opposition. He guarantees to Satan that Satan's enemy will arise from the race Satan has conquered. God's going to do it. Now he says it's going to be between Satan and the woman, right? Between the woman and Satan, there's going to be war. Why does God start off with a woman like that? Why doesn't he say between Adam and the devil there's going to be a war? Why say between Eve, woman, womankind, all women, between woman and the devil? Well, number one, the woman was the one deceived. So she's going to be the one through whom the enmity is going to come against the devil. It's also possible that man might have despised woman for being so stupid. He might have said, you were deceived, I can't trust you anymore. And if that's the case, then God is being very loving and very merciful and saying, but it's through the woman this devil's going to be defeated. So man, hands off. She might have been the first to be deceived, but she's going to be the first to be used to put the devil down. That could well be. That's the way God is. And of course, she's named here as the one who shall bring about the great battle against Satan, because she's the one who shall produce the Christ child. And I find it significant. I can say no more than that. It's very embryonic. It's a little baby of a prophecy. But it does say the woman. No man is mentioned in terms of the deliverer. And I see there a very faint anticipation of the virgin birth. That when it came to it, Adam fell for the devil's lie because of Eve. Man is saved today because a woman bore a virgin child. You follow what I mean? Man is not involved here. And so woman is going to play a very significant role in this cosmic struggle. But then it says between Satan and the woman's seed. Now, really, what does that mean? What is the character of the seed of the woman? Does it mean the whole human race? All those that shall be born of women? No, it can't mean that. I mean, I'll just throw one thing out. In 1 John 3:12, it says, Cain, speaking of Cain and Abel, Cain, who was of the evil one. So here is the immediate son of Eve. And God says through 1 John that Cain was serpent seed, right? He belonged to the evil one. Are you following me here? God said between the seed of the woman and Satan there would be enmity. Well, the first son of Eve was on the devil's side. So when it says the seed of the woman, it can't possibly mean everyone that is born of the woman. Cain had descended from Eve just like his brother Abel. But he cannot be described as the seed of the woman as one who hated the devil. He was on the devil's side. So it doesn't mean everybody that descended. Rather, the key here is God said, I will put enmity. God says, I am going to put a hatred in the heart. That hatred in the heart against the devil. That's what I'm talking about. It's a supernatural hatred. By natural birth, I am set against God. By natural birth, I'm on the devil's side. That's frightening, but it's true. Jesus said, of the Pharisees, the most religious, he said, you are of your father, the devil. On another occasion, he said, you're like a bunch of snakes and vipers, naturally speaking. Ephesians 2 says of the spirit that now works in the children of disobedience. We're on the devil's side, naturally speaking. But by the grace of God, something supernatural can happen. And the supernatural is a God-given supernatural hatred can come in our heart against the devil. So radical that it's a new birth. And I am not what I was born. You follow what I mean? I'm not what I was born. So the seed of the woman that is spoken of here, that has enmity in its heart against Satan, that's a suit. God said, I will do that. Devil, I'm going to catch you. The very people that you've won over to your side, I am going to put a hatred in the hearts of those that receive my grace, so that those that are on your side, they will be the source of hatred, anger, and the final battle against you. But then it suddenly moves to something more specific. So first of all, it's between Satan and the woman. Then it's between Satan and certain persons that are called the seed of the woman. But then it suddenly becomes very personal. It says, he shall bruise your head, you shall bruise his heel. So from womankind to a certain group of mankind that we define as born again, and then to one individual, a he, who's going to have a one-to-one conflict with you, Satan, and a he, the ultimate seed of the woman. So it's no longer a conflict of certain persons that have a God-given supernatural hatred in their heart. It's narrowed down to one representative that's going to deal with this devil. And this one is going to crush the head of Satan, symbolized by a serpent. And if he crushes the head, that means it's all over. Because you know where the poison in a serpent is. It's in the back of the head. When I was in Africa a few weeks ago, they killed a hooded cobra outside my bedroom door every day of the week. And I wasn't satisfied till I saw they'd got the head. Then I could relax, because that's where the poison is, right there in the head. And significantly, always looking at the devil in symbolism of a snake, he said, he shall get you in the head. So that's the end of the poison ability. That's why the New Testament, speaking of this specific seed of the woman, this one individual who shall represent all the others, when it speaks of his work on the cross, it says he was manifested to destroy the works of the devil. Or in Hebrews 2:15 it says he destroyed him that had the power of death. That is the power, the poison. Satan's lost that power. I think sometimes we underestimate the finished work of Jesus. As I said last night, people go around forever binding the devil. Will you wake up and realize he's bound? He's bound. And keep on binding the devil. Make up your mind, is it done or not? And keep binding him. He's done. Jesus is the strong man, the seed of the woman, who came and having bound Satan, can now spoil all his goods. How dare I go into any nation, any part of America, but certainly other nations, and stand in the power of witchcraft, stand in the presence of darkness. It was my job to bind the devil. It's my job to stand there and affirm it's done. The poison sac of Satan has been ripped apart. Cross of Jesus, Jesus said it's finished. He rose again from the dead. But he said, in so doing, as you shall smash his head, he shall bruise you on the heel. Now, whatever you do to my heel, it's a nasty wound, very nasty, but I'm still alive. It can put me down for a while, but I'm still alive. You smash my head and I've had it. And so he is saying that in this conflict, Satan will be smashed, but he who smashes shall be hurt to a recovery. Do you see why I say that in here you've got the whole gospel? Now I admit it's long echoes. I can only see the gospel here because I've read the last chapter. So I see here the virgin birth. It's there. Not plain, but as long as you know the end of the story, you know what the beginning's talking about, right? I see here the death of Jesus conquers Satan. And I see here that although the deliverer shall be hurt, he shall yet rise again. You follow me? I'm not a doctor, so I'm open to criticism on this. But I have been told that the only way you can truly bruise your heel is in crucifixion. It would be very interesting if that is the case. But in crucifixion, the whole foot was bent under and a nail put through the 2 feet. And it is said that is the only way you can bruise the heel of the foot. It would make sense. And so, it says, you shall bruise his head. There's another interesting piece of symbolism here in Hebrewism. The idea of putting your foot on the head of your enemy is to say, I have conquered completely. You might check it another time in Joshua chapter 10 and verse 22. Joshua calls his leaders and he says, come near, put your feet on the necks of these 3 kings. And he says, thus will the Lord do to all your enemies with whom you fight. So they brought their enemies and laid them down, and they put their foot on their necks, a symbol to say, we have conquered. We have conquered. Have you ever noticed with animals, especially dogs, when a dog finally submits, it lays its head on the floor? Have you seen that? In animal training, you have to work with that. You've got to make them submit, put their head down. It's the same idea. And so here, the devil has to submit, put his head down, and the foot of the deliverer is put on his head. In so doing, he gets his heel, but his head is crushed. The deliverer is triumphant. Then he speaks to the woman, and the blessing and the curse are mixed up together here. The blessing is she's having children. And of course, specifically that one child who shall be the deliverer that shall smash the head of Satan. The curse is that sorrow will be multiplied in that very thing. So in conception and birth, sorrow and pain. It's an interesting word here. This is a hardly thing to introduce in a few minutes, but I'll throw it out. It says, your desire shall be to your husband. Now, whatever might immediately come to mind as desiring a husband, I find that in the next chapter, chapter 4 and verse 7, the same expression is used, which might give me an understanding of what this means. And in chapter 4, verse 7, the expression is that sin desires to have you, but you must overcome it. The expression, your desire shall be, is not, I want it, but I'm going to get you. That's the idea. And Eve, apparently, what a thing to do with all you women here, it's terrible. But apparently, since the fall, the desire of woman is to dominate man. It began in the fall, in that she was the one that seduced the man. The man was stupid enough to follow along. Now, it says, your desire shall be to the man. That is, you will give oppressive domination. That's the idea. Oppressive, dictatorial oppression. However, says this curse, your husband shall rule over you. Can you see? I mean, this is the mess the world is in. Woman says, I want to dominate. Man says, you don't. Marital imbalance arose because of the fall. You've come a long way from Ish and Isha, who go to bring the glory of God to the world. Now you've got a woman who wants to dominate the man, and man ruling over the woman. You do realize that here in the West, we are living, shall I say, in a post-Christian. We're no longer a Christian society in the West, but we've got the hangovers of it. And woman has a place here, and men have worked out with woman the place. But you travel outside of a post-Christian influence, and you'll see where man crushes the woman. Because if he didn't, the idea of the fall is she would crush him. And so you've got this fight going on between the sexes, a result of the fall. He then turns to the man, and I think you've got here, again, a little flash of God's agape, his love, in that he's saying you're going to keep living. I know you broke the covenant, you deserve to die, but he says you shall eat bread. That is, you are going to have the food to eat. It's going to be there. In all of this, you must never forget, man ought to have been wiped out. You've got to understand that. That's why when you pick up a piece of bread, have thanks in your heart. God could have taken the whole lot away. It was part of the blessing that God says you shall eat bread. You'll have adequate food. Why? Because through this race, the deliverer is going to come. And so I am going to keep this race alive so that the deliverer can come, and he shall crush the head of the serpent. And the glory of God will be vindicated, and mankind can be saved. But he says, all, you can eat bread. You can have bread. So as we saw it with love in the other hour, he says, he causes his rain on the just and the unjust. Sunshine makes wheat grow for everybody. God gives food. But he said, it shall be in the sweat of your brow. For the first time, as man seeks to sustain himself, he is going to find excessive labor for the little bit he gets in return. Labor, sweat, exhaustion, pain. These are new words, new concepts have been introduced. And he says, dust you are, and to dust you shall return. So I will keep you alive, and the deliverer shall come, but a new element has come in. You will die. The curse of the broken covenant of life will come into effect. Not immediately. Immediately, you're severed from a relationship to God. Ultimately, you will die in your body. Your body shall be going back to dust. Why is it that man universally fears death? Because everybody knows we ought not to die. Ever thought of that? See, there's lots of songs that Christians sing. I can't sing. You know, they're suicidal. You know, really. You think about it. Oh, I want to see him, look upon his face. Well, if you really want to, we can arrange it. You know, you know. That yearning to fly away. Well, seriously, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Sorry, I know it doesn't sound spiritual, but I don't. I don't. And most Christians, I mean, singing, I've got a mansion over the hilltop, and well, you can keep the mansion. I mean, streets of gold bore me to tears. Give me the mountains and the leaves, and I get more kick out of walking through the Adirondack Mountains. We live up in the Catskills, and I just love, I mean, give me that. Don't tell me a golden streets, that bores me. And then most people's comprehension of angels, you know, poor neuters in lingerie who stand really most disgusting creatures. People's idea of heaven reeks. Their idea of death is suicidal. They want to get out of it. No. I don't want to die. There's something inside of me that goes all the way back to the covenant of life. It says you weren't supposed to die. Death doesn't belong to this person. This person was made in God's image. This person was made Lord of the earth. I wasn't made to die. I was made to fulfill a task on this earth and then walk out into glory. And whenever I face death, though I sorrow not as others which have no hope, for I have met with the resurrection himself. And the resurrection has said that if I believe on him, I shall never die. And so I don't sorrow. The sting has been taken out of death. But I can't go to a funeral and not sorrow. It says we sorrow not as others which have no hope. We sorrow. And I'll admit that in our tears there is triumph. And in that sense, I love a funeral service as the minister. I commit this person to the ground, dust to dust, ashes to ashes, in the sure and certain hope of resurrection. It's triumph there. But don't say, I don't sorrow. You're not human if you don't sorrow. I'm always afraid of a person at a funeral who doesn't cry, because you're not being true to yourself. You don't even know why you're here. I wasn't meant to die. And when I see death, I'm angry. There's a holy madness inside of me. Man was made to rule the earth. But the curse that came from a broken covenant said the earth in the end shall rule you. You'll go back to dust. That wasn't meant to be. And I wait for the finale of the deliverer's salvation, when this body shall be changed to be like unto his glorious body, and it shall know death no more. That's our salvation. And in the middle we live. We don't want death. The world screams out in terror of death. It shares with us that common knowledge. I'm not supposed to die. It doesn't know why it's not supposed to die. It doesn't know about the covenant of life. We cry out against death too. We know why. And we have hope too in the resurrection. So we do not sorrow as others, but we sorrow. We're still living in a fallen world. Think about it. Just think about it. What I've just been through in this, the fall, out of which emerges this covenant to Adam, the covenant of redemption. Isn't this life for most people on this planet? The question of providing bread, that's life, enough to eat. Of relieving the pain that I suddenly have discovered in my body. The question of going to work, performing labor. Or the question of bearing children and bringing up the kids. And the question of inevitable death. Go into any little society. It doesn't show much in our societies. We're too big and spread out. But go where a microcosm of the human race, just a little society, their entire life is to do with getting enough bread to eat, finding the work to do, dealing with the pain, bearing children, raising children, facing death. That's life. This tells me where it came from. Only this gives me hope. This gives me hope. It says a deliverer shall come, and shall not come from out of space, but shall come from within the human race that was treasonable traitors against God, turned to the devil's side. But from the devil's own people, God puts a supernatural hatred. And from among those people shall come one, and he shall smash the head of Satan, and in so doing shall bruise his heel, but he'll recover. You've got the whole gospel. You've got our hope. Jesus is the seed of the woman. Jesus destroyed the power of Satan. And it's going to take the rest of the Old Testament to get us ready for when that happened. But that's the Adamic covenant. And we'll break. Amen.